The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Point of Viewer. Yes, we have made it through another week, somehow, some way, with all of the chaos going on in the world. So it's that time to kind of, get you a little bit confused as to what's going on in society. But first, let me offer condolences and best wishes to everyone affected by the tragedy in Manchester. Some dumbass with very twisted beliefs who, as they say with some organizations taking credibility, they cry out for the name of religion, but those who truly believe in the faith where they claim themselves as being based on, just disavow and acknowledge them for as they are, just criminals with an agenda who have no business being around and on this earth. So thanks to one person's actions, unfortunately 22 innocent people have lost their lives. There is a sad chance to where that number will increase because of the number of wounded and critically wounded. I hope that everyone in the various hospitals survives, has a full physical recovery. I understand that everyone affected, everyone who was there, everyone who was involved in the panic themselves, it will take a very long road for them to be mentally 100% again, if ever. That is entirely understandable. This is trauma on some of the highest levels. So, for imploring those who were affected, those who were close, if you are not okay, that is absolutely fine. Talk to someone, be it friend, family, professional, what have you. There are many of those who understand this takes time to work through. And this is just those that were lucky to survive. For those who unfortunately perished, again, my condolences to the victims and their families. Unfortunately, while these sort of incidents in the world, regardless of where they are or when they happen, these shouldn't occur, but thanks to warped ideology on many levels, these things get bred, and unfortunately, people like this exist, and they are created. I hope one day we live in a world to where things like this, where one man decides to strap a bomb on his chest just to do harm to as many people as possible, doesn't happen. That is not only not in our norm, but just not in our vernacular. But unfortunately, with not just recent events, but as things have transpired across time, mostly within the past generation or so, slightly farther back, we're not in that world. We need to get closer to it. We should get closer to it. But unfortunately, there are more people who want to see dissension and anger instead of peace and harmony. These aspects create a human toll on unimaginable levels. I would love to say that this would be the last time, but even as Prime Minister Theresa May herself said, with this and with these conditions, even in her country, which is hers for now, there's been some rumors about the Tories looking elsewhere for leadership. Understandable given the climate post-Brexit, but she feels that another attack is imminent. And I can understand. There's a lot of intelligence, there's a lot of things to sift through. But until the ideology as a whole changes for a permanent basis, these kinds of things are sadly close to inevitable. So, keeping it on the serious for a little bit, a moment of silence for those in Manchester. Okay, well, hopefully Manchester United's win against AFC Ajax in the Europa League final brings some sort of comfort to, by all accounts, is a wonderful culturally diverse city, and I hope at some point they'll have their double-decker bus for their parade, well earned after a little bit of a rough season by United standards, getting back into Champions League for next year. So I would like to think that is one teeny moment to lift spirits up, one little bit of respite, sorely needed. But to get this out of the way, this leads to This Week in Misery. Folks, attack aside, I'm sure you've seen that. I'm sure you've seen the memes. I'm sure you've seen the GIFs of Melania smacking away Blotus's hand. All of this is really happening. Everything from Trump curtsying to the top people in Saudi Arabia to inadvertently all but admitting he gave code word level classified information to the Russians from Israel, to now further classified information to the president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, that we've sent 2 submarines to the Korean Peninsula. Between this, John Brennan's testimony in the hearings, to now Mike Flynn being subpoenaed, all of this is happening. All of this is unfortunately very, very real, to the point to where Trump himself is lawyering up. Now granted, flashing back to Nixon, which that really started to go down thanks to a recording of, on all dates, June 23rd, 1972. Why things seem to be connected to the date of my birth, I have no clue. Because yes, 14 years to the day after those infamous 18 minutes, or 18 and a half minutes, I arrived into the world. The hearings began in 73. By 74, he was getting a knock on the door saying, it's time to go. You'll be impeached. Odds are you're guilty. You may want to just quit. That moment now could be coming for Trump. Pope Francis, undoubtedly remembering the battles that he had question his Christianity from Trump of all things during the campaign. Trump is just showing further proof how he likes strongmen, how he loves dictators, and how he loves to brag. Never minding that people's lives are at risk on a regular basis. Our allies' lives are in more of an enhanced risk because of a man who loves to talk, just because he knows something that he doesn't think anyone else does, doesn't realize that that's for a reason. Every single day there's been something in the news. And I just have to remind people, this is real. This ain't normal. You can't link what Trump did directly to the tragedy in Manchester, but all of this is within the realm of reason now. If you can create that link, then people have been killed because of this. If you can't, then undoubtedly people could and probably will be killed because of these actions. But of course, he doesn't see it that way. He sees himself as a king, was treated like one in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure got the red carpet rolled out for him in Brussels as well. Multiple press conferences, now another one with Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. That very awkward timing. Dedicating a mere 15 minutes for a Holocaust memorial site. Seeing him in the yarmulke at the wall, it's just... this is where we are. And even before coming on the air tonight, news broke of a Republican congressional candidate in Montana, 24 hours away from a special election, body slamming a reporter. Body slamming. Reporter now, Ben Jacobs. He, at last check, was in the hospital getting an X-ray on his elbow. All because a man didn't want to answer a question about a budget that would lead to the deaths of potentially millions of people. Yes, for those of you who have been keeping track, the revised American Health Care Act, the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, keep that in mind. They went objectively, reviewed the measures, crunched the numbers, did all of the calculations for what this bill would mean. That's what scoring is in this context. The CBO has said, good news, $119 billion would be cut from the budget, or would be cut in spending over the next 10 years. Drop in the bucket, and I'll tell you that later, $119 billion. But the bad news, 23 million people would lose their coverage. 23 million, so you're easily talking 8% of the country? 8% of our country's population would lose their coverage. Now, while this is a quote-unquote improvement from the 24 million who would have lost coverage in the first version of the bill, that difference of a million, that's because their coverage would just be so high they could barely hang on and be able to afford it. It would be through the roof. So again, by whatever means you can voice your opinion, by whatever means you can protest, hold the Senate to their word that they would at the very least start fresh. This can't happen. And while this was going on, you had the federal budget. That was unveiled, as it was entitled A Path to American Progress. Now, never mind that if you looked at Medicare cuts between the American Health Care Act and this federal budget, $1.5 trillion, almost. Originally $880 billion, this budget would cut a further $616 billion. So $1.5 trillion gone. Don't rely on your state to be quick to raise taxes to make up for whatever shortfall. If you're in a blue state, yes, there would be some measures, I would assume. But if you're in a red state, you're pretty much going to be out of luck. Chronic care, medications, gone. Gone. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're pretty much going to be on your own if this budget passes. Unfortunately for women, it's worse because Planned Parenthood, any sort of government program that would have anything to do with getting abortions, gone. And even though Planned Parenthood does not use any federal funding under an existing law for abortions, and the fact they only make up a fraction of the percent at most of their overall services, that funding goes away. So Planned Parenthood would, in essence, disappear. For those of you that watch PBS, Antiques Roadshow, Britcoms, different kids shows like Word Girl and whatever, gone. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting would go well beyond decimated to eliminated under this budget. National Endowment for the Arts, similar fate. Gone, gone, gone. But you know what would get a boost? The military. Looking for a 10% increase in defense spending under this budget. Not 1, not 2, 10%. Despite the fact that the man with the blonde hairpiece has gone on record and said he wants to make stuff cheaper, like the Boeings and all of these terrible deals. He wants to renegotiate, yet he's going to give them more money. On top of a quite possibly illegal $200 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. No wonder he was given a gold necklace and treated like a king over there. They're making bank. His daughter's making bank. $100 million for a charity that I've never heard of or seen her do any work for. But all of this is happening and going on. Yes, unfortunately, all of this is real. It's up to us to fight and go against it. Because, boy, hell, do we have a lot of work to do. Anyways, enough of that. I've got all the heavy stuff out of the way. I got a bone to pick. And I might be calling Sean into this if he's available. If any of you know me, you know that I am something of a game show fanatic, game show historian, game show junkie. By many different words and means, it's still the same. Now, for my awesome producer Sean, I'm wondering, has he ever heard of the Gong Show or Joker's Wild? I have. I've seen episodes. And for the Joker's Wild especially, there were two versions. The original one from Barry Enright, yes, the same people who brought you the rigged game shows in the 1950s. They did the version of the Joker's Wild in the 70s, and it was excellent. There was a revival late 80s, early 90s that nobody really talks about for good reason. But there is, in the works, a revival of Joker's Wild. Now, this is why I love ABC. When they brought back Pyramid, they did it excellent justice, although I still have a beef with how they break ties. It should have gone to the $100,000 Pyramid format, and even the new $25,000 Pyramid, and have the tiebreaker round. You can do that and still run in a half-hour episode, if necessary. Match Game with Alec Baldwin. They did that perfect justice. Celebrity Family Feud. Perfect justice. They hit it out of the park. And I'll get to Gong Show in a minute. Another good choice. But all of these things are perfect. You even curry my favor a little bit more with Snoop Dogg hosting Joker's Wild. You have any idea the kind of humor, the kind of shit he can get away with on that network? I mean, my God, you're setting off a potential laugh factory. This is excellent choice. Excellent choice in programming, especially for the summer. And for bringing back the Gong Show with Tommy Marchand as a character as hosting, I mean, ABC, I got a lot of love for you. You're killing it. So what do you do with all of this momentum? You decide to bring back American Idol in 2018. Why? Why? With all the different judges, all of the horrible acts, all the good acts, even your winners going on to do Dog Piss Jones now. That show had run its course. I was ecstatic to finally see it go. No more having to put up with J-Lo or whatever B and C-list celebrity they could dig up just so they would be getting a decent paycheck. None of that. No more having to put up with Ryan Seacrest and his annoying face and his annoying voice and his annoying mouth. My God, the man has 5 or 6 jobs already. I want to whoop his ass just for forcing the Kardashians down our throat. He was gone. Back to doing his radio show and God knows what. You as a network at ABC decide to bring this back? Why? Why the hell are you reaching? Everything good for bringing back a potential era of game shows which is what we need right now. Yes, we've got some good dramas. Yes, we're drowning in comedy, and don't even get me started on all of these reality shows. We needed to complete this throwback by having a solid block of game shows. You taken that mantle and did me proud. Then you go and ruin it by doing this. The fuck were you thinking, ABC? I mean, are you that hard up because you officially lost Monday Night Football or whatever and you're still owned by Disney? I mean, what compelled you to make this choice? Who had this brainstorm? Who flipped through the channels? Who said what to whom in the boardroom? What? Come on, ABC. You honestly, as a network, are better than that. You did a lot of things NBC refused to do. And CBS. Okay, some credit to Fox for Beat Shazam. That could be quirky. Definitely a little bit of credit to NBC for The Wall. Although they should bring that back on a more full-time basis instead of just teasing me with all of these specials. But you were the man. You were further developing your legacy. Back from 500 Questions. Back from Duel. You were doing so wonderful. And you decide to deal with American Idol. Ruining time slots and ruining the number 19 for me because one of the productions was like 19 productions. Christ, ABC. You had me. You had me. And you went and you lost me. Ugh, I hope you change your mind. There's still time. We're a long way away from the 2018-2019 television season. We're still about 4 months away from the 17-18 season. You can still make this up to me, personally, and decide not to go through with it. Choice is yours. You got a lot going for you. Choice, just saying. Now, on to sports. Let me tell you, there's a lot of stuff in sports news that's been popping up. And a lot of it, I gotta admit, I like. But, again, just like I had a bone to pick with ABC, I got a teeny bone to pick with the NFL. Now, over the last week, there's been news, not so much on the field per se, although organized team activities are starting to ramp up. You got your precursor to training camp. You got draftees being signed. So, things for the new league year are starting to gel a little bit, in a good way. But the reason why I have a bone to pick with the NFL is nothing close to that. I'll get to that in a second. Why I think the NFL really dropped the ball is because of their Super Bowls. Now, there are a whole bunch of rules that even I'm finding out myself as this story develops. But originally, the Rams, in their bright, shiny new stadium, were going to get Super Bowl 55, which will be played first part of February 2021. Not a long time from now, if you really think about it. However, Mother Nature, through some sort of twist of fate, spite, PMS, I don't know what's been going on. LA's been getting a lot of rain. A lot of rain. A record amount of rain. It hardly rains in LA. Not this past year. Because of that rain, and I'm seeing this firsthand, living here in Jacksonville, we deal with construction on a daily basis. A lot of it, I'm sure, is probably just fuck with our psyches and our commutes. But you get used to it. And when it rains, construction typically slows down. You can't have guys working in the rain. You can't do stuff with concrete, metal, machinery, what have you. So I can understand that. If it rains every day for a little while, well, then that leads to an exacerbated set of issues. You have to worry about overtime, you got deadlines, all kinds of things going on. And unfortunately, that's exactly what's been happening in LA. The bright, shiny new stadium, which would be a beacon for Rams games, Chargers games, Pac-12 football championship games, let's face it, that's inevitable. It's behind schedule. Way behind schedule. To the point to where they are now a year behind the schedule. So they're not going to be opening up on time. So the NFL, in a bit of a quick maneuver, they pushed the Rams Super Bowl back to Super Bowl 56, giving Super Bowl 55 to Tampa Bay. Florida, yet another Super Bowl, which I'm not inherently complaining about, except for the fact that it's Super Bowl 55. And until Goodell decides to get his head up his ass and realize that Roman numerals are officially passé, it will be as Super Bowl LV. Now, when I think LV, I don't necessarily think the number 55. I think Las Vegas. But hey, viewer, Las Vegas doesn't have a team. Oh, yes, they do. Or they will. In the Raiders. And it would have so happened that the Raiders, if all goes well, they would have had their stadium for 2020, 2021 for that season. Now, I get the NFL rule stating a team cannot host, the stadium cannot host a Super Bowl in its inaugural season. Would it have been so bad to have it at Sam Boyd? I mean, you finally broke down the wall and getting a team there. You're accepting gambling to a significant extent, especially since you're not pushing against FanDuel, the DraftKings, or any of these others. Now, the Super Bowl making millions, if not billions, just like you did for the one-off for Super Bowl 50, with the merchandising and it not being in Roman numerals. You could have done the same thing by hosting Super Bowl LV in Las Vegas. Yes, this violates other rules, and yes, there were waivers involved in this and that, but Are you really that against red tape to realize you have another one-off marketing strategy that you never would have to deal with again? Think about this. You left quite a bit on the table there. I'm just saying. Just saying. But the good news, the NFL, as part of their spring meetings, they went through some somewhat significant rule changes. Now, a lot of these I agree with. If you look back or listen back to the old show that was the Football 5, there were some very heated debates about ties. Yours truly is in favor of them. I specifically mentioned what the old NFL Europa League did in the regular season. 10 minutes, each team was guaranteed a possession. If still tied, sudden death. After that, everyone goes home. Well, the NFL showed that they agree with me part way because of that. For the regular season, just for the regular season, which I'm fine with, overtime periods have been shortened to 10 minutes. Now, the rules about field goals and touchdowns and things still apply. And yes, if you look at schematically, the number of plays that were run in the last 5 minutes of overtime were minute compared to the plays run of the regular season in total. But still, while you don't have to buy the argument of player safety, you can buy the argument that it gets things along quicker. Once you head to that last 5-minute mark, which by then is sudden death typically anyways, I'm rooting for a tie. I want it to be done. I don't want any last second score or things like that anyways. And you can play the what if game and the fact that yes, had this rule been in place for this past season, Tampa Bay would have been in the playoffs ahead of Detroit and all of these other things, but you're getting it now. The NFL is at least wising up to something. And in another good bit of news, for the preseason especially, you don't have to deal with the 75-man roster cut. Now, I'm hoping the NFL furthers with my ideas as far as getting rid of overtime for preseason games altogether, especially since you don't keep a lot of statistics or score records for that anyways, unless a team runs the table. But now you give coaches, GMs, much more flexibility. They don't have to worry about evaluating just a game, 2 at the most, not even full games, and camp before they have to just get rid of 15 people. Now they can carry their whole roster, have those last bit of position battles, especially for that 4th and final preseason game. Those are going to be even more crazy. Then you make your cut, one swoop, down to 53. Oddly enough, the Redskins have been pushing this for years. The league finally listened to it. I'm on board with this. And although we are past the days of Ocho Cinco, sinking putts, proposing to cheerleaders, and with the Hall of Fame jacket, and Terrell Owens with the pom-poms, or going to the Star, or getting the whole bin full of popcorn, we're going to see some celebrations again. Because the NFL and the referees have decided to take a step back on penalizing for these end zone celebrations. I'm okay with that too. Everybody got on you and called you the no fun league. You finally wised up. So I can't completely rag on you for the missed opportunity because you're making up for it in spades. You really are in my mind, and I'm good with that. You got me tuning in, because now I'm going to be rooting for even more ties. You think I'm crazy? You can still tweet me. You've been able to this whole time, at Squid Sportshead. But come on, secretly. Especially for all of you fantasy people like me, are ties really a bad thing? Now, for you sports bettors, yeah, I can see where you would be pissed, but even you can find ways. Now, going on, let me first take time out. As we are at this time of year and as there have been developments, I would just like to take a quick moment and say I'm at least half right. For the NBA playoffs, the Warriors, first team in NBA history to sweep 3 consecutive best-of-7 series. First team ever to start a postseason 12-0. I was wrong at the beginning of the season. I didn't think they would be anywhere near as good as they are, or get anywhere near as where they got, but they're there. When it came time to start of the playoffs, they were one of my 2 favorites. I honestly thought they were going to get beat by San Antonio, but unfortunately Kawhi Leonard's injury prevented that. And I'm officially only half right because Boston pulled off something of a miracle in winning Game 3 on a last-second 3-point shot, having to come back from 21 down. But that, in essence, only delayed the inevitable. Cleveland wins in 5. Here we are. 2 teams going into the NBA Finals. They would be a combined 24-1. Yet you still care about the NBA playoffs? You knew this could happen from the beginning of this season. Very little predictability, a lot of ugly series, and even some of the more decent ones didn't matter. There's been 1 Game 7 the entire NBA playoffs. 1. And in comparison, look at how many sweeps there have been. Yet you still prefer this over the NHL. Stanley Cup playoffs, you have yet another Game 7, Pittsburgh and Ottawa, after heroic effort by Craig Anderson, Senators goalie, and a 2-1 win. After an out-of-nowhere hat trick from a guy that I never even heard of on Nashville until last night. And guess what? The Predators, not just still in the playoffs, they're for the first time in history in the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, granted, this actually bolsters my argument about why they should not have an MLS team, and I'm probably going to debate that with Sean on our next episode of Soccer to the Max, which you can hear right here on W2M Network and wherever else you get our awesome podcasts. But they have a moment now. They could do something that I never even expected. Now, as I told my best friend at work, I'm not exactly pulling for them against Pittsburgh. While yes, Pittsburgh is tired, Pittsburgh has played 3 consecutive physical teams. Columbus, Washington, which went 7, now Ottawa, which is going to go 7. So Nashville has an advantage, thanks to the extra rest. But if they do go against Ottawa, I would have Nashville favored in that series. I think just based on goalie matchups alone, Pekka Rinne could make Craig Anderson his bitch. Nashville could easily take more risks. You got Roman Josi, PK Subban. You just got Philip Forsberg. You got Fischer's your captain. Will he be back? If so, that adds even more danger to your team along the forward lines. I don't think Ottawa can match up. I know Pittsburgh could. And they would become the first team in 20 years to repeat as Stanley Cup champions. But look at all the drama that's built up. Teams out of nowhere. Favorites getting swept. What are the Canadian teams going to do? So much history, so much intrigue. Upsets abound. 6 in total. A wild card. Again, making it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Yet no one cares. No one. You probably have more people that know about cloud computing winning the Preakness. Out of nowhere, a 13-1 shot didn't even run the Kentucky Derby. That rarely happens. First horse in a decade to not run the Kentucky Derby only to win the Preakness. More people know about that. More people know that the Texas Rangers win streak was just snapped. More people probably know about that than what's going on in the NHL playoffs. And I say shame on everybody for that. You are all doing yourselves a tremendous disservice if you don't pay attention to what's going on. Because either way, especially with this, you're going to get a hell of a series. You are. Shame if you missed out. But now that I've gotten that off my chest, there's a couple of minor things that have come up on the radar that, well, I am intrigued by. One of which is a potential professional flag football league. Now, I have not personally played flag football since middle school gym class, and granted, I am not the most athletic type, but you put me in a slot receiver or something, I could do a little damage. Did some trick plays at quarterback. I have a decent arm. I'm righty. I can read defense. I know what I'm doing. But there's a case. And yes, there's a lot of flag football leagues at the youth level, women's level, world championship level. Yes, there's a World Flag Football Championships organized by the International Federation of American Football. But while there's a lot of amateur and semi-pro flag football here in the States, there's not a professional league. Well, that could change. And a potentially wise investor, a wise financier, Jeff Lewis, he's like, okay, 7-on-7, regulation field, regulation 60 minutes, having designed patent pending flags attached via magnets. And when a flag is pulled, there's a sensor goes off so an official will say exactly where the flag was pulled off and the play ended, rather than having to get a best guesstimate. That's intriguing. And like what the A11FL attempted to do, and why they didn't stick with this instead of going on to form the doomed, ill-fated FXFL, he's organizing a test game. Now, as part of this test game, you're letting the crowd get a feel for it. You're gaining a potential audience, saying, hey, when we start up, and the American Flag Football League wants to start up in 2018 with 8 teams, so they're doing something right. But for this, they're like, we want people to get a feel for it. And when you do it right, it helps to have a big name. Well, Lewis found 2. Aside from having some with 4 names, locally, Donovan Darius, if you're a longtime Jaguars fan, that name will be familiar. Rob Conrad, another familiar name to NFL players. They're working behind the scenes, but 2 guys that you'll see on the field, Michael Vick and Justin Forsett. Now, granted, for Vick, it's going to be a little bit tougher because he's coming off of ankle surgery, but he's in it for being quarterback for one of the teams. I mean, between his stints, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, the New York Jets, being an all-time quarterback during his 2 years in prison, he's one of the best guys that you could get for something like this. And the fact that you're keeping it to about a world standard, 7-on-7, 4 15-minute quarters on the full field, I've got some personal ideas I would like to bring to the table. But come June 27th, Avaya Stadium, home of MLS's San Jose Earthquakes, you're going to get a glimpse of it for the first time. See what kinks could be worked out. Hopefully I can take some notes and provide a long-time fan and medium-time journalist perspective to the game. What I think they could tweak. But I'm loving the approach. The fact that instead of just going this big launch like so many other leagues have failed and not having everything together and putting it all slapdash because you just want to make money. No, this is how you do it and how you do it right. Now, I would love to see those people that are currently involved stay involved, because believe it or not, there's a lot of potential. This league, this test game goes well. Then you get set for a big opening in 2018. You get a big opening in 2018, you could potentially expand by 2020. Who knows, by 2025, you could be talking a 16-team league. Granted, a little extreme, but that's how I am, if you heard me from any of my other shows. But the fact that you're doing it right now, that's plausible, potentially probable. opening herself up for that. And that is just insanely good. And I'm hoping that one of the 8 teams is near my neck of the woods so I can go and get to cover it. I would love to potentially add this to my resume. Couldn't hurt. Couldn't hurt whatsoever. And for fans that are craving football in the spring and summer, not quite your cup of tea for the Arena Football League or National Arena League. Don't even get me started. Or the upcoming American Arena League. Again, don't get me started. You want to be outdoors? Here you go. You want to imagine yourself as a professional athlete? Well, who knows? This could be yet another opportunity. But no matter how you slice it, this could be big. Now, for my last sports topic of the night, oddly enough, this is something that caught my eye after my mother told me about it. Now, with basketball drawn to a close, and again, not a lot of drama, you're going to have that little bit of a lull between now and when next season rolls around come Halloween. Now, since we're in an odd-numbered year, you don't have the privilege of an Olympics or FIBA World Championships to look forward to. So it's really, for your diehard basketball fans, gonna be bone dry. But, of all people, Ice Cube. NWA, Friday movies, are we there yet? Hell of a rapper, hell of an actor. He's like, no, I can do something about this. He got together, and I would assume inspired by the revolution that is FIBA 33, catching on with world championships at a youth level, the World Youth Games, and seeing FIBA 33 myself, I love it. He got together, he announced the league. He's like, I can do 3-on-3 in more of a pro style. Now, the difference between FIBA 33, and I'll do a quick rundown of the rules. You've got timing. It's like 10-minute halves, if I remember correctly, at last iteration. You've got a shot clock, 15 seconds. You've got rules about, 3-point line and what's in play and passing and rotation. But shots are 1 and 2 points. And whoever has the most at the end wins the game, or if it's first to 21, if I also remember right, which, for a youth level, I can understand. Now, when you're getting pros, and not just any pros, Smush Parker, Kenny Anderson, Jermaine O'Neal, Steven Jackson, Allen Iverson, Jason Williams, Corey Maggott, Kendall Gill, Chauncey Billups. Allen Iverson as a player and coach, Gary Payton, George Iceman Gervin, Dr. J, Rick Barry, Charles Oakley, Clyde Drexler. You're doing big. They have the draft, they have the 18 names, and granted, some of the rules are a little gimmicky. The 4-point circle, the additional free throw if a foul is committed in the act of shooting. And you've got for the missed attempts, like if you were making a 2 and you missed, or 3 or 4, and you have a shooting foul, well, you get that many points. You don't foul out like the old Summer League rule. And for the team fouls per half, 5, and then after that, opponents get 2 shots in possession. Same with technicals. I mean, 4-point circle, I get that. But overall, I kind of like the gimmicks. Not like with FIBA, originally it was first to 33, then they changed it first to 21. For the Big 3 League, it will be first to 60. You have to win by 4, and when a team gets to 30, then that's halftime. And it's going to be kind of a barnstorming carnival format because the league is going to take place different city every week. You're going to have, as I said, 8 teams. So you have from my birthday, thankfully, June 23rd, quadruple headers on each site every week. August 13th is the last week of the regular season. So, 8 weeks. Sensible. Then you have your playoffs on the 20th and your championship on the 26th. And the best news, FS1. They've already got a TV partner. Now, normally not being a basketball guy, I am going to tune into this. I am intrigued. Not just seeing all the old names and all these players and trying to figure out which guys I recognize and who I've never heard of in my entire life, and how the 4-point circle is going to come into play, and how they're going to use defensive strategies, and what's the half court going to look like, and advertisements and everything. This is something that I can legitimately fuck with. And I'm hoping if it does well, then maybe someone in the kindness and benevolence of their heart sees a lowly old journalist and podcaster who, if not for a freak rainstorm, would have play-by-play experience, decides to hire him from his old job and have him go on the road, cover some games. If not for TV, for internet radio, maybe, close to, kind of, could be, hoping. But anyways, while I throw that out into the universe, I want to end on a particular topic that, well, it came about in a weird way. And that's female condoms. Now, in seeing a quirky advertisement video of how a woman would apply the condoms with the lubricant, and seeing a woman in the nude do cartwheels, yeah, that was okay, but what bugged me is that everybody thinks that this is a new concept. And Dr. Fisher, the man who came up with this iteration, this generation of female condoms, I admit the man's genius. Instead of using latex ones used out of nitriles, which terrible for hot dogs, but good for this kind of material to prevent, still works to prevent diseases. You get heat transfer, so you don't really feel it in anything, which is great. But as I kind of led to, it's not new. It's not. I first heard about female condoms back when I was in college. Many, many years ago. Now, granted, the ones that are on the market now look a lot better, supposed to feel a lot better. They're a lot less jankier because the older ones were ribbed and people complained that it kept making weird noises and slipping out and possible mimicking sounds of pussy farts, whatever. Not a comfortable experience, and that's changed, but I would love to have a woman that I would try it out with. Instead of me having to find the right size Trojans and then remembering to pinch the tip and then trying to roll it off afterwards if I'm not quite ready for it to be over and done with. She gently slips it in. Then a little twist, gently comes out. How simple is that? Everything's just done and dusted right there. And you don't even have to worry about, at the beginning, stop, trying to keep your heart on, licking nipples, putting your fingers in different places so you stay in the mood. None of that. Because all of that will be taken care of. You just go in, insert long before, and then as the magic was about to happen, the magic can happen unimpeded. So, I am all for this. I just don't want anyone out there to think that it is revolutionary. This version is great, but this is just a dramatic improvement on something that has been around for more than a decade. Now, again, dramatic improvement, but just improvement. So, hopefully, whatever comes along in this arena a decade from now will be even better. But we all got to remember what these came from. To the college students writing in anonymously, talking about what happened and all of the awkwardness, that helped us get here. They should be remembered for that. They really should. Because admittedly it made a hell of a reading material. But alas, my time on this cast is done. Hopefully I've taken your mind off of a lot of things, and if I haven't, well, there's booze, there's weed, there's a lot of other stuff at your disposal. If it's legal, great. Just don't be careful, don't be stupid. If it's not legal, well then, I can't advocate anything else, any other kind of way. Just, best I can say is don't get caught. I mean, I don't know necessarily how Wi-Fi works in prison. I don't want to know. Really don't. Really have no intention to. But alas, this has been Viewer the Squid signing off. And remember, if you love my dulcet tones, number 1, thank you. Number 2, tweet me at SquidSportsHead. Number 3, tweet my producer at W2MSean. Recognize his awesomeness in his decision for letting me keep going on this, because I'm sure any other person would have probably pulled the plug a long time ago. But go to W2Mnet.com. Check out all the other podcasts. Not just ones like Soccer to the Max or This Week in the AFL that I'm on. Check out all of the other awesome podcasts that there are. And in the meantime, check out all of the video game reviews or football or wrestling, whatever to your heart's content. If you don't feel like going just for the articles or don't feel like going on the site, fine. Look me up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, maybe Android or Google Play. Gotta get confirmation on that one. But I'm around a lot of places. So, with that said, and in fondness, have a pleasant evening, do your homework, and don't forget to be awesome.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.